Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another Vintage Views. Today I'm going to have a look at another obscure console from the 90s. This time it's the Amiga CD32. Let's take a quick look at the hardware, shall we? And here we are, the system itself. It's not ugly, certainly not an original Xbox boring, but it's nice enough for its era. 32-bit. Amiga CD32, reset button, power LED, disc access LED, volume and headphone output, very reminiscent of a Mark I Mega Drive. Notice on the front we have no controller ports. There on the left hand side, two standard 9-pin serial connectors plus an auxiliary input which you can use to connect a Commodore keyboard to. Primary joystick input number 1, number 2. Interesting to note, if you stick a mouse in number 2 and hold both the mouse buttons down when you're resetting, it brings up a secret boot menu so you can change NTC or PAL, things like that. Nothing too exciting. So look at the back, shall we? Right. Component out, very useful. Super video out, very unusual for a console of its age. The RF out, or as I like to call it, the aerial connector. Power input, and a switch, power switch. Commodore 64 fans will probably recognise the power switch. It's the same when it was on my Mark II Commodore 64C, so... Expansion pack. Now, unlike most consoles, this did have expansions, several of them in fact. But we'll come to that later. Bottom, nothing too interesting. Manufacturer date, September of 93. Now, things I don't like. Number 1, you can just open that like that. There's no catch, clasp. So when the games are spinning, you can do that, and they can fly out. It has happened to me. Number 2, there is zero copy protection on this at all. Which means now you can just download games from the internet and burn them off onto CDs and play them. However, at the time that wouldn't have been so great for trying to sell units. It's a double speed CD-ROM, so that's double the speed of the Mega CD it was at the time. That was, I suppose, one of its rivals. Not too bad. Now the controllers, well, these are a bit different. I'll bring up one here. When I find it on the floor. Aha! Controller! Yes. Very, interesting. Now when I first saw these in the magazine, they looked very slim and futuristic. When I have one in my hand, it's chunky. D-pad's okay. This button always looked out of place to me, and even now it's really annoying. These buttons here, very cheapy. I've actually had this thing open, and yes, the plastic that makes these up is incredibly cheap. Along with the D-pad, the plastic at the back of that is extremely thin, does break quite easily. Inside there's a big sticker, manufactured in September of 93. Yeah, okay. They're not the most resilient things in the world. I've already had to repair this one twice since I got it. Just because it's older, I suppose. Replacements on eBay, if you can find them, between 15 and 20 for unboxed, 25 to 30 for a boxed one. Power supply. Again, Commodore 64 fans will recognise this beast. Exactly the same as what I had on my Commodore 64C, the Mark II model. And it is the same thing. Mine was white, this is black, zero difference. This one blows up, just buy a Commodore 64 one, works perfect. Right, well. There we have it. Right, let's go on and talk about some more Geek Speak, shall we? Right, what's under the hood? Well, as I've already mentioned, it has a 2-speed CD-ROM drive. The motherboard itself was powered by a Motorola 68000 series chip, the same one which was in most of the Amigas at the time. It has the same AGA graphic processors as the Amiga 1200. In fact, the machine is basically an Amiga 1200 with a CD-ROM drive minus the floppy and the keyboard. Right, the expansion port. Now, unlike most consoles, this was used quite extensively on the CD32 short lifespan. First up, we have the SX expansion modules, or the analogic expansion modules. Take off the cover, shove them on the back, you basically add the facility to have a floppy drive and video output. So the machine, in a sense, becomes a 1200. At the time it would have been more expensive to do this than buy an Amiga 1200, but you can do this still nevertheless. The SX, the S and the SX expansion models are quite rare on eBay and other auction sites. The analogic ones are actually quite common. You can pick one up for about £60. There's about 10 when I just checked eBay just now. Now that's not the only thing that expansion module was used for. Also, there was an MPEG decoder card. Now, if you got one of these, there was less than 13,000 of these ever made. It was one of the last products Commodore ever produced before they went bankrupt. Plugged that in the back, enabled you to watch video CDs. Basically a forerunner of the DVD format. Not particularly popular in Europe, but in Asia, supremely popular. Even today, there's still thousands of units sold. In fact, an interesting note, if you ever have any video CDs you've picked up, perhaps at a market, or indeed if you have one for the CDI, they will play on the Amiga CD32 as long as you have the MPEG card. You can also view picture CDs and things like that. And in addition, because it has a CD-ROM drive, it will play audio CDs with built-in hard-coded software, which for the time was a big revelation because CDs were really just starting to kick off, and that's something that people really wanted, was a CD player. And the fact that the console had it, that was a brilliant feature. Well done, Commodore, on that one. In fact, if you have a quick look at the control pad, there are track skip buttons on the two shoulder buttons, and the play pause button also doubles as well, play pause button on the CD controller. So that was quite a good feature as well. Now for a bit of a history lesson, why nobody's ever heard of this machine. Okay, why have you never heard of it? Well, it was first displayed at the Science Museum in London in July of 1993. Chris Evans was there, as you can see with this silly picture of him. The machine first went on general sale later on that year. Main competitors at the time, you had the single speed add-on for the Mega Drive, the Mega CD, and you also had the Philips CDI. This was, well, the box is the world's first CD 32-bit console. That's not quite true. It was the first one in Europe and Canada. In Japan there was the FM Towns Marty that went on sale 7 months previous to that, and the machine was never actually sold in North America, well, America, because of a patent violation that by the time Commodore got sorted out, they were bankrupt, and the people that bought Commodore out chose not to put the CD32 back on sale. In fact, the machine was only on sale for 9 months, and in that time it shipped about 100,000 units, which for the time it was on sale is quite a lot. It grabbed 50% of the CD-ROM market in Europe initially, which is the PC CD-ROMs, the CDI and the Mega CD. Not a lot of competition really, to be perfectly honest. They say it's a 5th generation console, which means it comes into the same market as the Atari Jaguar, the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. It was out years before any of these machines. If Commodore hadn't have gone bankrupt, if they sold enough of these machines and it had kept the company afloat, I think we would have saw good things from it. I mean, it certainly had promise. The games are really good, but I'm going to discuss that in a later episode. Today we're looking at the hardware. The machine is technically quite powerful. Not as powerful as, say, the PlayStation or the N64, but certainly had things to look forward to on it. Now, how would it fare against the PlayStation? I don't think very well, because of 100 million units sold the PlayStation so far, Sony's marketing power. But at the time this came out, Commodore was on its knees. It needed to sell units. If it sold enough, they were working on the AAA chipset, Advanced Amiga architecture, which would have made an even more powerful computers and consoles. So we may have seen a successor to the CD32. But that didn't happen. So we ended up with a historical oddity, which is interesting to own. They're not particularly expensive. An unboxed one like this one, that was about £40 on eBay. Boxed one about £80 plus. Go for a boxed one. They're always worth more, and it looks better in the box as well. The MPEG expansion card I mentioned earlier, less than 13,000 of them in existence. The odd time have come up on eBay, £100 plus. And unless you're a serious collector, don't bother. Okay, that's it from me for the hardware review. Next time I speak to you, we're going to look at some Amiga CD32 software, and I'll give my final thoughts. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.